And we're live.
We're live. Woo!
Okay.
Crazy.
It's been a minute since I've been live.
When was the last time you were live?
I don't think I've been live since I've been here. So maybe.
Oh, really?
No. Let me quickly check my phone. I think it was something Booker related. Booker was announced. No, it was before Booker. A month ago. I was live a month ago.
Oh, wow, it has been a while. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, wowza. Okay. So, hello everyone, the three glorious, wonderful, amazing people who are here to watch us talk about life, love, and the pursuit of happiness. And if you don't know, my name's Kiran, and we've got Nathan.
Hello, everybody. Nathan from Nathan's Nook. Here to talk to you about all things books, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've got a busy agenda. So much to talk about. So many things
Lots.
on our mind. Like, where do we start? Do we start with AI? Do we start with Zadie Smith? Do we start with Brandon Taylor? Do we start with clothes? Like, we're given range.
It's a lot. Yeah. It's like, when you're at a buffet and you have you just stack your plate with everything. It's like, what do you put in your mouth first?
Overwhelmed. I can't make any decisions at a buffet. A buffet is my worst nightmare. It's not for me.
Yeah. I mean, it's stressful. It's so many choices. Yeah. Hotel buffet is the worst.
In one of your videos recently, you said take me to a buffet. That's my ideal date. And I was like, no, thank you.
But it eliminates all options, you know what I mean? Because I hate that thing where it's you go out and you step outside and you're like, okay, where should we eat? What should we eat? And then there's just a billion cajillion things. But if you go to a buffet, you have everything.
I guess, but I prefer if someone were to give me two options. We could either do pasta or we could do Thai food. I'll choose pasta. We can go to this restaurant, or we can go to that restaurant. I don't like that restaurant.
Yeah. That's a good friend.
Options. It's can you give me a third option, please?
That's smart. I should do that. Yeah. But see, I can't ever narrow it down to two. I guess Seoul has so many restaurants. When I'm in the city, there's just I have this giant list. And I'm
but the lists are never helpful
something?
When you actually are in the moment, because then you're oh well, this place is actually too far away, or this place is only open at 5. It's tough.
Yeah. Again, options. Yeah. But yes, we also have booktube news, AI. AI. I mean, wow. MTV. Are we talking about MTV today?
Yeah, we can talk about that as well.
Yeah. Also, how do I see who's watching?
I don't know if you can see who's watching, but I think you should be able, when there are comments, you should be able to see them on the side, and you should be able to add them into the chat.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. Well, I guess we start with what are you on now? What are you reading?
I'm in the middle of 50 books, and none of them I like right now. I'm reading a Booker book. It has the rainbow cover. Booker long listed book. It doesn't bode well for it that I don't remember the name of the book, but it's it's not a bad book per se. It's the one that's a bunch of connected short stories, and it's a lot about If I Survive You by Jonathan. I can't read the last name. It's about immigration, immigrating here, being a child of immigrants in Miami, the relationship between Florida and Jamaica, and it is interesting. It's just taking me a long time, and that's the only thing that I'm trying to get through. I'm off track from my Storygraph goal. I'm 5 books behind, so I really just gotta move fast and just pick something and finish it.
Right. Well, your newsletter, you were talking about doing the ABCs.
Yes,
of
but
finishing your book.
Slowly, you know what I mean? Like, I already know what's like. So for those of you guys who don't know, both Nathan and I have dropped newsletters. And my newsletter last week was about reading the alphabet, where I take 2 books from my shelves that happen to both start with the same letter in the alphabet. Naturally, we started off with A, where I read Angels by Dennis Johnson, and then Astrogirl by Albertine. Last name starts with an L, S, I believe. And I didn't think that these books were gonna have anything in common, but then they do, because they're both stories about the dispossessed, albeit one is taking place in America and then the other is in France. And they're just very interesting stories. And I think, honestly, I would recommend Angels by Dennis Johnson to a lot of people. It was really, really good. It's very dark and depressing and just, it was good. Give it a go.
It sounded really interesting when you wrote
but
about
I've decided what I'm going to read for like letter B. It's going to be Bola and then Bad Fruit, which I don't know if they're connected. It's like I think it came out last year maybe, or end of last year, beginning of this year. It doesn't have the nicest. Some of the covers are nice, by Ella King.
Oh, Ella King.
Yeah, let me like share screen so you guys can see photos.
Ah, yes, with the oranges.
Bad Fruit. This was Angels. Like, I'm like such a visual person. I really need to see the photo. You know what book people are talking about a lot of the time. And then the other one was If I Survive. That's what's on my radar. What about you, Nathan?
Oh yeah. See, I don't really like that cover. There's something kind of.
It's really bad. And both, I guess one of this is probably the UK and one's the US, but they're like not good. I'm sorry to the author and the people involved.
Yeah. I mean, what is that thing that's burning? Is it like a match?
I think it was a match.
Have you gotten there? Okay.
Oh, I don't know in the book though. In the book, we're following like individual characters. So the beginning is quite strong. It's very strong. You have this first chapter, which is about this young boy who's his kind of coming of age, and he doesn't fit in at all. When he's in school, like first he starts hanging out with Black kids and they accept him because they think he's Black, but then they realize that like he's biracial. Yes. Not really. No. And so then they're like, what are you? You don't fit into what we think Black is. And then he starts hanging out with like the Dominican kids, but he doesn't speak any Spanish at all. And then they're like, if you don't speak Spanish, you can't be hanging out with us. And he feels so disconnected from his family, from his roots. He is close with his mother, but he's not close with his father. And it's just like good. And it's also told in you, which is annoying. But it was a strong start. And then the second story, you look at his father and you see his like early adulthood when he's in Jamaica, and like life is good for him because he does come from money, but then there's a lot of violence that is happening, and he starts to feel that it's not very safe. So he decides to move to Florida, and you know, it's obviously not the easiest of transitions, and he has to figure out a living for himself, and there's a lot of financial constraints on him and his wife. And he will think about how, you know, if we were in Jamaica, my wife wouldn't need to work. Like I would be the man of the house and like would be able to provide for her. But here we both need to work and we're still struggling. And he's able to like connect with his eldest son, but he isn't able to connect with the youngest son, who was the protagonist in that first story. And he's just like annoyed with himself because he's like, this kid is weird. He's like, we just don't see eye to eye. Like my other kid, like I get him. We're the same. Like he understands what it's like to eat Jamaican food and loves it. But the other one, like he's a weirdo, and he kind of just like gives up on him. I thought the second one was really good. Even better than the first one. I've spoken to other people who thought that the first story was amazing, but for me, it was number 2. And then I've read like 3, 4, 5, and like different characters were like coming back to them, but yeah.
It sounds very textured, like in social class, race issues, and just like 2 different locations. That it sounds really like layered and textured and a lot.
Yeah, there definitely is, and it's like stressful because there's a lot of financial precarity in these stories, but there's a lot going on.
Yeah, that's crazy. Um, I just started
That's exciting.
Roman Stories. Crazy. Jupiter. I just finished the first story. It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. But it's okay. I think it's a good like first introductory story, but it's about a woman who sort of like owns this Airbnb, and she's just like watching over this family, um, who's there, and they're having like a really pleasant time, and she's just like super observant of them, and you wonder if she's envious of them, or thinking or idealizing what does the perfect family look like, and then we realize at the end of the story that something traumatic happened within her family that sort of explodes, and you sort of realize like why she had been idealizing this family. And it's a lot about like expat living, which I'm curious about, like
Yeah.
being someone who's like a minority within, um, yeah, a different city, um, and yeah, just different racial uh, issues and class issues as well, I want to say. And yeah, but this I've just only read the first story, but that's my impression so far. Um, but yeah, it's all right.
And I
This is
guess
my second Lakiri, so
what was your first one?
Interpreter of Melodies.
That's
Yeah,
also
so I've
right.
yeah,
Yeah,
so I've
I
only
like.
ever done her short stories.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense. Um, are these like connected short stories?
I'm not sure. I think they're all separate, but they're all set in Rome, I
Cool.
believe.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And then I'm also realizing I shouldn't read short stories back to back, so I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
So I have an ARC of Brainworms by Alison Rumfit. It's just like, so they're a trans like horror writer, and I
Oh,
just like love that because she's so transgressive. It's pretty wild.
yeah.
I read Tell Me I'm Worthless last year, and it was
Oh, okay.
like,
I remember that cover. Yeah.
yeah, that one was wild. Set in the UK, and it's like still a haunted house story and like a ghost story, but like attacks the social political sphere of um, the UK. Yeah, really, really good. And yeah, I got an ARC, and this one's about like worms and people's brains.
Interesting. So it's
Um,
body
yeah,
horror.
yes, and I just got done with a golden shower scene. So that's where we're at. Yeah,
Fun.
yeah. Great balance, I'd say, between this and Lahiri. But okay, cool. But you said you're like 5 books behind in your story graph.
Goal. Yeah.
Yeah. What's the goal?
104. So that's like 2 books a week, 52 weeks.
2 books a week.
Yeah.
But like also you've been surrounded by like big books,
Yeah, but I haven't even
right?
touched them. It's not like I could be like, oh yeah, I've slowly been working my way through these big books, so I haven't been reading small books. Like I just haven't been doing a lot of reading. I don't know why. I know why. It's because I've been on TikTok, but I don't want to be on it.
Right. Maybe I should stop sending you TikToks.
No, keep sending them. For those of you guys who don't know, I complain to Nathan a lot about how my TikTok feed is like really boring sometimes, or just very basic and like not interesting, not aesthetic. And so to combat that, Nathan sends me TikToks, which I love.
I try. I try. It's
You're
mostly
doing
just
good
tin
there.
fish.
But tin fish is important. Like I'm okay being on that side of TikTok. Like sometimes I will go down like rabbit holes about cooking videos. I haven't cooked anything since I've been in Bombay, but I have watched like hours and hours, which is so bad to say because TikToks are like, less than an hour. I have watched so many cooking videos.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's that like black hole, that 1 hour black hole. You're like, oh my God, I've been on this app for too long. Get me off.
Yeah, then my eyes start to hurt.
Yeah, which is so crazy. Okay, speaking of, I've
Oh, did you start it?
uh I finished it
Oh,
today, actually. And it actually has a lot to do with AI. And he talks about this part where we've got into this habit of not being able to close our eyes because we're
mm,
straining our eyes over this constant feed of content of he really just talks about photography, but given that this was like written in 2004 and we didn't
yeah.
have TikTok then, was Vine? No, Vine was later, right?
No, I think
2012, 13?
when did Vine? I almost said wine exist.
Were you on
20,
Vine?
not like a creator, but like I would find those like I was there. The lurker.
She lurking.
Yeah,
Okay.
like historically, I've been a long time lurker. This YouTube has been the first time I've really been like out there.
We love to see it though. Love to see it. But yeah, he just talks about this thing where we can't close our eyes. And uh, before that, he talks about this idea of stillness and silence and how because we're always so reliant on our devices, there isn't any more time for this silence, this like closure of the eyes and being away from
Mm,
that. But this is kind of crazy because I think like he was talking about like the doom and gloom of AI. This was back in 2004, and this was recently published. It was like translated from the German by Daniel Stauer
mhm.
in 2020, and it's still very resonant to a certain extent. Um, and yeah, kind of crazy. This idea of like, here, let me read this for you. Artificial intelligence is currently busy completely de-caring human existence by optimizing life and doing away with the future as a source of care. That is, by overcoming the future's contingency. So he's talking about this idea where AI is basically replacing care and basically the essentials of care, basic human needs, or these basic human acts that fulfill our lives. And the idea of like these tiny little acts, these like moments of mundanity that feed into how much care we actually do for our lives. Um, for example, there's uh, I remember like a few years back in SF, there was an app where there was a service where you like people could do your laundry for you. But it's
Oh,
a simple act of like doing laundry for yourself that
yeah.
offers.
And a better, easier example would be Uber in the regards that the act of calling a car service, like when I was in college in the first year, you would like call a taxi line and like request a car. Then after that, thank
Yeah,
God Uber came through. But like in that act, like you're no longer engaging with a human. You're using the app, you're using the software to call yourself an Uber, and you dread the thought of even speaking to another person.
yeah. And I think Byung-Chul Chun, he comes from this sort of like boomer generation too. So he would even go as far as to say like not even calling a taxi and just like walking or taking a bike ride. So in some areas he's quite boomerish about
Yeah.
certain things. Like he hates selfies. He sees that the selfie is just this demoralizing act of essentially care and how um, it isn't meant to exist for a long period of time. It's basically a temporary existence of the self.
Well, it reminds me selfies on like taking that reminds me of like John Berger's The Art of
Ways of
Seeing,
seeing.
The Ways of
Yeah.
Seeing,
Hmm.
where people go into museums, they take photos, they take the photos because is almost a way of saying like, I saw this, I own it almost. And not, you don't actually own the physical item, you own the image of it, but you're able to claim a sort of, you're claiming something of that image through that act. And that's kind of what I think is like with selfies, especially when you're traveling and you see, like, you go to touristy sites and you see people taking selfies, it's like a way of inserting yourself there. And it's quite interesting because over the weekend, my sister and I went to Bihar, which is like a 2-hour plane ride west of Bombay. And we went there because there's a temple there where Guru Gobind Singh, the 10th and final guru of Sikhi, was born there. And there's so many signs in this temple that like literally are like, no selfies. Do not take selfies here. But like you could take photos, but no selfies. And they have people who are like kind of guards, or I suppose you could say. And they like, if you're taking a selfie, they're gonna come through, take your phone and delete it, and then give you your phone back. Like it's quite intense in that regards. But I do think there's something so interesting to me that like people's desires to go to holy spaces and then like take a selfie and kind of ignore the sanctity of these places, even if some of them like are of the faith or they're not of that faith. Like that's, this behavior of taking selfies is very common here. And I just think it's interesting how far that desire for the selfie is like present.
Yeah. Is the self a part of sanctity? Like, did I actually go if I didn't like take a picture of myself there? But what was that sort of like tiny TikTok trend like a few months back about like when you take a picture of your food before you eat it, you know, the camera eats first.
Yeah.
It's like that is sort of care in a sense. Like you're caring about the food, you're caring enough to take a picture of it, you're putting claim towards it. But yeah, I think he's just like too much of a boomer to really sort of understand that. And I don't think he wrote this with the intention of knowing that like people would vlog about their lives and TikTok and sort of this like really fast-paced media consumption in mind, given that he wrote this in like 2004. But yeah, AI as sort of like removal of care. I mean, with like the writer strike going on and um, giant media corporations wanting to like create scripts out of AI, is that a sense of like, is that decaring? Are we caring less about a particular group of people, a particular craft, a particular part of the human imagination and humanity? Is it sort of like a decaring of art itself, essentially?
I think there overall is a decaring of art. And I think, okay, so my sister works in entertainment and she uses the word, and then I work in the social media space, for those of you who don't know. A word that comes across quite often is content. And it will be like, some of my friends, for example, have like also, you know, started their own social media influencer kind of stuff. And they're like, oh, we need content, we need content, we need content. Now, let's say if you're a food blogger, a food, whatever, you're taking photos of your food, those images aren't necessarily content. And then that semi like argument, not an argument, more like debate my sister and I had was when it comes to media consumption, like she's working in terms of like films and TV shows, is it still content? And my idea is that I don't think art is content. I think art is more than content, you know, and I get very upset at the thought of like calling art like the Jabal Lahiri book being like, well, this is content. And it was like, well, content has become such an empty word that it can be used for anything such that it means nothing. So to call a film content is like, just strips it of any of its artistic integrity and implies that obviously there's a plot in that. And you could say that the plot could be like the content potentially, but the desire for content, I think, is ruining art and the films and the media that we're getting, because to kind of say content means that there has to be something in there. And then we're getting all of these films that have these like super reductive moral messages that are very like Twitter based versus actually being a piece of really great art that engages with someone and makes them have an emotional reaction.
Yeah.
That's like a soapbox moment, guys. I'm glad we got that off my chest.
Whew! Relief. But no, I mean, yeah, it's there is a big difference because, and I don't know, to a certain extent, it kind of like scares me because like at what point can a vlog be like an art, almost cinema? You know what I mean? It's like at some like sometimes I think like when I watch like a Brittany Bathgate video or like Moya as well,
Yeah.
it's just so beautifully compiled that it almost has this film-esque quality to it that it could be a short film. But what Tongchu sort of analyzes is the whole thing is about non-things and basically how we're moving away from this idea that we don't need things anymore. We don't need objects anymore, which I disagree with, but he really leans into as this world like falls into stream service, ebooks, and the iCloud and cloud services, we rely less on physical things. And he tells us that like things are so important because beautiful crafted things warm the heart, and these sort of things and their tangibility, like a book
Yeah.
and a DVD, these very tangible things that require wear and tear and being held and being touched constantly adds value to them, adds history to them, adds memory beyond memory to
Yeah.
them. Yeah. And that's what differentiates, I think, like books and film from actual non-things, content, essentially.
Yeah.
So I think you could make the argument that content itself is like non-things. And within like a very information pumped society that we exist in right now, we rely so much on it that yeah, it cancels out like our ideas of silence and sitting within ourselves and needing so much to be like bombarded by quote unquote content all the time.
Sorry, I'm
TikTok,
going to
Instagram,
another
Twitter.
light. I was looking too shadowy, but I don't know if I fixed the problem.
Hey, everything's better in the dark.
Yes, true. Okay, no, you were
But yeah.
we were having some good thoughts there.
Yeah, I want to say like non-things, content especially, and the rate at which content is produced now is sort of killing our inner peace, our inner child. This idea that we can't sit still, when I think that is really healthy. It is so important to like sit still and be able to. Oh, what was it that CJ posted? um, on her Instagram about like her first diary entry. I just thought that was hilarious.
What?
That feel when you have a lot of energy for dreaming right now.
Yeah.
Those silences build up that energy for dreaming. And
Well,
those
yeah.
dreams are important.
The silences, which I think can also another word for that is like boredom, and why people tend to gravitate towards using social in whatever instance that they're in is because they don't want the silence or the boredom that comes with that of having to like sit by yourself and be like to occupy your time yourself. But it's only through those moments that you can have a spark of creativity or an idea or a dream. Whereas like if you're only scrolling mindlessly, like you're stripping yourself of that opportunity and your senses get dulled.
Yeah. Like we get overstimulated to the point where we feel no more stimulation. And that's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Kieran, tell the good people, how do you sit in silence?
Um,
What brings you to boredom?
well, I try. I have in various times to like meditate. Um, I do minimum like a minute a day, which is no like crazy feat because there's actually people out there who are like really going at it. But like for a minute a day in the morning, I try. Um, but I also like try to give challenges to myself almost like, okay, so I was just telling Nathan about my dinner excursion. And when I went out to eat, I was like, I'm not going to go on TikTok. And I literally am like sitting there and I'm just like, I want to go on TikTok. Like, I felt like an addict. I literally was at the restaurant eating my food and I'm just like, TikTok is there in the back of my mind and I'm still thinking about it. And so that's a sign to me that I've been on it a bit too much. But I also think another opportunity for silence or to like be still with the self is when you're doing things in public, i.e. like standing in line at the grocery store or to order your coffee or whatever it is, instead of grabbing your phone to spend that time scrolling and waiting, just wait and look around you. And like, especially if you want to write or anything like that, like you could be missing out on a great observation about a person or a really great description, like get out of your phone and like look around and see what's happening.
Yeah,
I'm saying all these things. I don't want anyone who's watching, any of the 15 people, to feel like I'm yelling at you. I'm yelling at myself.
with her nagging finger like
Yeah.
this. Yeah, no. I mean, I'd like to tell myself that I sit in silence, but I mean, I literally woke up today and yeah, was doom scrolling for an hour on TikTok just in bed. I'm just like, and then of course, immediate regret. Like, why did I spend why did I waste an hour of my morning like that? It's really bad. But yeah, what I've been doing for the past 2 weeks is after I finish dinner, I just go on that walk.
Hello, guys. I'm
I just
sorry we
take that
ignore
walk. Oh, sorry. Hello, people. Welcome.
you.
Welcome, welcome.
Yes, we appreciate you being here, enjoying your morning coffee. Um, while we chat, Noor dropped a little line about pre-India banning TikTok. There used to be signs that were like, no TikToking in the mosque. It's like, yeah, put your fucking phone down, clown. Like,
But also, of all places, why a mosque?
yeah.
You
Or
know what I
just,
mean?
anyways, and hello, Sarah. What's up? Okay.
Howdy,
Where,
y'all. Woof. Um, but yes, boredom is important. AI is scary. How do we feel about AI and an article that I printed it out, by the way,
oh no, that's
that
so smart. Like, I wish I printed these things out because, oh my gosh. Thank you, Disco King. Thank you.
Disco King, what is up? Where did I
Um,
put that book? He made me
hello.
do it. He made me do it.
Oh,
Okay, he made me print it out. I was like, I can't read this on a screen.
Nonthings. You wanted a thing.
I needed a thing. And you know what? It was nice. It was nice to hold. It was like holding the morning paper.
Well, that's why I prefer reading books over the Kindle. And I know I recently got the Kindle and I have been doing some reading on it, but I think part of my I just love holding a book to read, and I enjoy underlining it more. And okay, to truthfully, do you think that the Kindle is a little clunky in its functionality? So like when I
So
underline
he,
things,
yeah,
he talks about.
he hates the Kindle. He hates the ebook. He talks about how, like, when you like download a book, I think like Amazon says like, oh, like you own this book now, like you are in possession of it. No, you don't,
No, exactly, yeah,
because you're not wearing or tearing it down. And though I absolutely love the conveniences of the Kindle, um, especially when you're like traveling, it's like as much as I want to carry these like 6 books with me across the world, you can't. It's not feasible.
yeah.
But I feel like it's just balance as well, you know? I mean, like, also, books are expensive.
Yeah. Hello,
Yeah,
cost of living crisis.
like exactly. So like the library is incredible,
Yeah.
especially for me because it's like in my city there aren't. I think there's like 30 English books in total, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
really sad. So I can't like get anything, and so I rely a lot on like Libby and my library back home in LA, and I get all my books through there and get it on my Kindle. So it's also that. Um, so it's just balance, I think. You just need that
Can you hear the
balance.
call for prayer?
What was that?
Can you hear the call
Oh
for prayer?
yeah.
Yeah, it's going.
I've been
Um,
enjoying like your last few videos and just like the diegetic sound of
City.
Mumbai and just like it's so gorgeous.
This is good. Z. Would that then end up being like Z80? um,
She
yeah.
got scooped. She got scooped by the AI.
Her, Elena Ferrante. There's some people. But
Yeah,
okay,
James Patterson. Oh yeah.
this article came out on the Atlantic. I used paywallremover.com. That's my bay. I use that site all day, every day. I pay for no media. You won't see me doing that. No, thank you, New York Times. And so that's how I read this article. But basically, this article is called Revealed: The Authors Whose Pirated Books Are Powering Generative AI. The author is like a writer, tech person, hacker who did some digging, some sleuthing to look into what material is being used to train AI to write. Take it away, Nathan.
Okay, yes. AI. This basically this like giant database called Llama, Llama. It's similar to GPT-4, but it's an algorithm that can like generate text by mimicking word patterns. And it has this like giant database of more than 170,000 books, which includes James Patterson, Stephen King, Saunders, Zadie Smith, Junot Diaz, and it's just like part of this data set called Book Three that just like takes all of these books and like learns the language of these books.
Some other names that I thought were interesting was Bell Hooks, 7 books by Jonathan Franzen. It was 9 books by Bell Hooks, and then 33 books by Margaret Atwood that
No,
are
that's
all
crazy.
in this compilation.
Like Atwood is probably like screaming. They're just like 33 books, like 33 of your works
Yeah.
has taught AI to mimic literary fiction.
And of those 170K, 1/3 of them are fiction and 2/3 of them are nonfiction, which I thought
Yeah,
was an interesting little split.
yeah. But also includes other names like Jennifer Egan, Rachel Cusk, you mentioned Ferrante, yeah, and
Yeah.
Murakami as well, yeah. Um, but yeah, all of these titles from Penguin Random House, Oxford University, HarperCollins, Verso,
Yeah.
Macmillan, yeah,
The
it's
result of
pretty wild.
the result of this is that naturally, anytime a book is released, regardless of content, we're just gonna have to be like, it's giving Franzen, you know? It's just gonna happen.
It's
Um,
giving Franson. Which, yeah, I don't know. Are you afraid of it? Are you afraid of the direction that AI is going towards, like
so
mimicking literary fiction?
all of this stuff, and I think this might be my only and the most boomer take, is that all of this shit scares me. AI, metaverse. Obviously, like, no one actually uses the metaverse, and like Facebook and Mark, whatever, like really fudged it up because Meta's not cool. But all of that stuff scares me. I don't think we should touch it. I want someone to put in a law being like, no, thank you. Humanity says no. And let's just move on with our life. We got a lot to work on right now instead of, figuring out copyright issues with AI. Like, the world is burning. Let's get our shit together.
Yeah. it's taken up too much energy. But like it goes back to this. It's this idea of like we need to stop with the constant bombardment of content and just really sit within our silences and our
Mhm.
boredom and really think like y'all, this is kind of dangerous. Like if you know big TV networks are thinking of like replacing writers with AI. Also, like in the copywriter sphere, is like I'm really scared because it's like
Yeah.
with I think yeah. I mean, in the next, I mean, less than a decade, I feel like there'll be no use for copywriters, and it's really, really scary. If like AI learns the humanity of literary fiction, then it understands the humanity and sort of the basic human needs involved in language um, to create human touches that I think what makes copywriters so important, bringing in that language. Um, so yeah, I'm terrified. I'm
What?
also
Oh, go ahead.
boomer side about yeah the fear of all this.
But and I think no, a lot of the times I'm very like an early adopter. I'm really down for whatever, but this shit scares me. I do think that in the few instances where I've used ChatGPT, like I understand, I've never been a good Googler. So even when it comes to putting in these questions into ChatGPT, I kind of am a little frustrated by the answers that I get. But like, let's say if I were to use it to write an email, I would then have to like go back in and add, the personal touches that actually makes it sound convincing and, makes it so that I would get my way. But Kieran has, well, first of all, Disco King has a funny point. Using George Saunders for AI generating is going to make it all look like it's malfunctioning. Like we're here for the shade, let's do it. And then Kieran has a take that I think is really important for us to consider because it is, different from you and me who are like having anxiety attacks. AI is going to revolutionize the arts. I think if it opens avenues for people to create art beyond their skills, capacities, and whatnot, then it's not a bad thing. I think from what you're saying, there kind of would have to be a bit of a symbiotic relationship where, the person who's inputting into AI, like they're working together almost. Whereas I
Yeah,
think Nathan and I's fear is like in the sense of the writer strikes and like big media companies being like, fudge you writers trying to write, we're going to have our own script. Like that kind of stuff seems scary to us. But I think on the personal individual level, there probably is a lot of possibility and interesting things that could happen. But from what I've seen of AI art, a lot of it's really ugly. Don't you agree?
yeah, I think so too. Although I will say with Kieran that I think it is a very interesting space in terms of art. But it, again, it's that symbiosis. It's the relationship between human and AI in order to, I think, like flourish within this new artistic space. But if like, you know, I don't know, like segregation, one versus the other, AI versus human. I mean, like, I feel like at some point one is going to be more reliant than the other, right? It's Olga Ravin's what is it?
The
The
employees.
Employees.
Yeah,
Exactly. She wrote it. She wrote it.
yeah.
And that's the truth. That's the truth. There was symbiosis on that mothership, and then look what happened. Look what happened.
I kind of think I need to reread it because I don't really remember the ending.
Shit hits the fan. That's the ending.
Yeah, true. Good
Yeah,
point.
yeah. Smart Knits construction though. I think it's a fun one, and I'm excited for her new novel. I'm trying to get an ARC of it,
Motherhood, I
but
think it's called, right?
yeah, my work, body
Oh,
work, my work,
yeah. But it's
something
somehow
work.
related to this
Yeah,
cover. I really like. Can you guys see the screen? No, right? Hold on. Share this tab instead.
yeah. Lolly editions.
Yeah.
They do fun stuff.
Um,
Yeah.
how do you feel if AI could instantly translate a work into multiple languages? Would you choose the translator over the translation?
So I know right now I sometimes use High Native, which is like a sort of translation app. So just a few weeks back, you could be able to like type in like, oh, what does this like? Can you translate this phrase for me? And a person would like respond and be like, you can say it like this, and then multiple people could like give you different translations. But just like 2 or 3 weeks ago, they've used AI to translate everything now. So there's no more
That
people.
human touch is gone.
Yeah. And it's just like, oh no, the nuances. Like
So
I'm looking for like a
does it still
specific
give you the
nuance.
nuance, or is it kind of like how when you use like Google Translate and it only gives you like one option? And like, for example, this happened to me when I was sending Kieran a note and I wrote something in Welsh and he got the note and he was basically like, you kind of like yelled at me to go read this book versus being like, go read, you know? Because
But
I didn't have
aren't you
that
yelling,
context.
Karen?
Yeah. I just didn't have that context to know like what the right grammar form was because Google Translate doesn't do that. So that's kind of what's happening now with this app.
I think it's a little smarter than Google Translate. It'll like offer like a breakdown of sentence structure and basically like hierarchical levels of the language, but like uh, again, it's still AI, and when I relied on High Native for sort of like the nuances, I had like real people and like different answers, whereas AI, you just have this like one entity that offers everything. But I think that's brilliant that like for example, if you could like translate an entire document, you know, like imagine the future of like literature, like grabbing something on like Scribd or Scribd
Yeah.
and then just like have it automatically translate itself.
I guess in that regards, it would probably allow for more access because it can be so hard to get works of art translated. But I think you probably still would need a translator just to like
Clean
run
things
it.
up.
Yeah, exactly. And just to like make sure that from the original to this second version that the intention is still the same with the language that's being used.
Yeah. So then would you think that like there would be less jobs for translators? There's a
Yeah,
symbiosis there, right?
so
But
yeah,
would there be less jobs for translators?
I think it would depend on like I think it would create more jobs potentially. Let's say like okay, if you think of how many books have been translated into Korean, for example, and the global market only gets like how many books out to them, like you could get potentially every single book that's published in Seoul, get that translated into, let's just use the example of English, and that would, how many books is that? Like that's a crazy amount of books. You would have to have human translators like running through and checking that, and that would create jobs. Like we're building up the economy that way. Um,
That's true.
but then I think maybe certain works, like let's say if it's something super super dense, maybe that would need like a person to go through it versus like the AI book. For example, like let's think of Solenoid. I think that seems like a book that would be very tricky to maybe translate with a machine. But I'm not a machine. What do I know? But
Exactly. Yeah. What is the machine thinking? What is it dreaming of?
machine, what are your feelings on this book? Can you handle it? Tell us. Tell us. Let us know.
Tell us. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess I think that would work if uh there's just like a huge quantity, right? And if
Yeah.
there was a large market, and sort of like mass produced, but not really.
Well,
What's the
what
word I'm looking for?
like what we need in this case is marketing. I think that's what you're getting towards,
Yeah.
right? Because how would you
Yeah.
then be selling all of these books? So actually, what AI would end up doing is taking away, well, creating more jobs for these translators that we need, who are kind of translators slash copywriters, and then you would need more marketers, which honestly, the world does not need more of them. But we would end up having the people who would need to market the book to people so that they would buy them.
Yeah. Who are we? Do we own some kind of business? Are we CEOs? What's going on? There's a lot.
We're doing like
But
overtime
yeah,
analysis, like we're fixing the economy. There's a lot happening.
yeah, but yeah, I could see that. But again, yeah, it's the symbiosis. But again, I feel like with that symbiosis, there's eventually a breaking point, and yeah, that that terrifies me. It's interesting. We're living in wild times, but yeah,
Was
yeah.
there anything else from this article that stood out to you?
I really liked the sort of oh, so they briefly go into pirated books, right?
Yeah.
They mentioned some of those sites that like have um yeah, just like be able to torrent books, right? And how oh, this idea that like piracy in the early days existed for the self. It
Mm,
wasn't for these big corporations. AI was like this realm wasn't for big businesses or um, the world of what's what's that word I'm looking for of
corporations,
corporations and uh,
capitalism.
capitalism. The evil word there, yeah, for that. But yeah, she ends the article that a culture of piracy has existed since the early days for the self and for just the individual, and that's where it starts. I mean, isn't that how Napster started, right? Or LimeWire, sort of just like
But there's
music for the
something
self.
noble about that. Like
It's the Robin
the
Hood of
I was
yeah,
just gonna say, yeah, exactly. Like that's what that is. Like that's it's good for all, but in this instance of, pirating these books to teach big AI, um, is not useful for all. It's useful for only a very select.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, I think just like uh, Alex, the writer, just like grounds us again about like why all of these, why we started in the first place, like um, why piracy exists and sort of the realm it exists for, and for the self, the individual. Yeah,
I think the other thing that this article made me think of, which wasn't written in the article, was that I've never looked at like right publishing contract, but it does make me interested to see, like, I'm sure you could probably find them on Google, like a basic one, but it does kind of make me think that authors in the future should be, if they don't already be, they should be writing about, I don't want this to be used in like AI related training, or like what, but you have to be thinking beyond that. So you have to add in enough of those clauses that whatever weird baloney thing they're going to throw at us next, that you're able to combat it so that you can still maintain the ownership and like intellectual property of your work.
yeah. Margaret Atwood reading fine print, but also thinking like there better be not be any loopholes.
Yeah.
Poor woman. Oh gosh. Just like, can you imagine that? Just like 33 of your books, like things that you've made, just like
Yeah, but then that got done because like I was on that train of thought. Then that had me thinking about a lot of our authors do speak that, like, when they're in the process of writing the work, it's a very like the author and the work relationship, and it's very intense. But once you publish that work, you are kind of separated from it, such that you can't control the reactions and the impressions and the emotions and the feelings that people have from that work.
yeah,
Where is I going with this? Oh, okay. And then it had me thinking about, like, once after a certain, like 99, 100 years, artwork, like books, whatever, enter into the public domain. And then, that work can then be made into a movie. And, maybe the original author would have thought that the movie was trash because, hey, we've seen like adaptions of films and things and been like, that was really bad. And then it's like had me thinking about like in one regards, the author does have that, ownership, like mother-father relationship to their piece of work, and wants to be able to like see how they can control the narrative of the work throughout their lifetime. But then they pass and they relinquish that control, and it's almost like in some regards, is it even worth trying to fight it? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. What is control? What is authorship? What is
Yeah.
authority? Yeah, but yeah, which is so interesting because I just got Katie James and I were just talking about. She's reading Blue Nights by Joan Didion right now, and she had sent this podcast and how um, she was working on The Year of Magical Thinking, the play version, and
Mm-hmm.
how, and this is like late in her life, she realizes sort of the importance actually of audience and how, though she helped write The Year of Magical Thinking for this play, that she realized like how close the author is actually to the audience and how there is a symbiosis between the two, that that relationship needs to exist and a relationship does exist, so it isn't so much far removed. It's almost this like contradictory thing of like belonging and not belonging, togetherness but not together. And I don't know, I just thought that was beautiful. Though we can't control how other people feel, people still do feel, and they
Mm.
relate to the work and attach themselves to the work just as much as the writer attaches themselves to the work. It's, yeah, like an umbilical cord
Yeah,
in
I
a
think that's
sense.
kind of a good way to describe it if you want to like continue the metaphor in the sense that the mother or the artist were to be nourishing the fetus potential reader with the material, the though I don't want to use this word, the content of whatever the book is, sending it through the vibes, the mood, the tone, and then this will be really funny when we start talking about Brandon Taylor's like article that we read, but then those thoughts and vibes and whatever nourish the baby. And ideally, you want the baby, the reader, to take in everything, because everything that the mother is giving to the baby is important. But maybe the baby has slightly weird DNA and it doesn't get this one thought.
Are you saying there can only be perfect babies, Kieran?
No, but you got what I'm saying, right? Because it connects to the,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah. Which is crazy. Okay, so like, yeah, I haven't read anything by Brandon Taylor, but I love
Not read
him
his fiction.
because I've only read his newsletters, and he's great. I love the way that he talks about art and writing, and he really gets into it. And his last newsletter, as Kieran was talking about, yeah, what is necessary within a text.
Am I back?
Yes, you're back. Oh, what happened?
I was gonna show the Brandon Taylor article, and then I like used the StreamYard site to do it, and then it said like, "Are you sure you want to leave this site?" And I was like, "Yes," and then I was like, "No."
She's like, yeet.
Okay, I'm glad that. There's echo. Let me put my. Sharon, can you grab me my headphones? They're in the. No, the. Um, really fudged it up. Was there an echo for you? You were good, right? Oh, now we
Okay.
lost Nathan.
Oh, okay.
Oh, hello.
Hi. Can you hear me?
I can't hear you.
Okay. Okay.
I can hear you slightly. Talk louder.
Oh, can you hear me now?
No, you're too soft. Why don't you take yours off as well?
We good? Is there an echo?
Yeah. No, I think we're good now.
Okay,
Gosh, that was frightening. Technical difficulties. Someone give us some AI to help us.
Yeah, we're boomers. Sorry. How do we use this technology?
Yeah. Okay. What was it called? Necessary Scenes.
Yes, Necessary Scenes. And I think he was mostly focused on audience reaction and sex scenes within films or in books as well, and if they were necessary or not.
Necessity in art.
Yes. Are they necessary?
I think sometimes they can feel really gratuitous. Is that the word? Like, for example, sometimes I feel like when you watch a new show and you know the show's supposed to be edgy and a little like dark and it's going to start with like, you know, no context about the show. And then somehow it just starts off with a sex scene. And you're like, why are we here? Like, what's happening? Like, why am I, what? I don't like when it's used like that. Then I just feel like, I'm not in the world enough to be invested. And I do have another thought on this because growing up, I watched like South Asian films, Bollywood films, where historically the censors were such that there wasn't even like kissing scenes in movies. And that was the norm. And the idea of like a song in a Bollywood film was to evoke that, you know, that almost. But that was that. And then over the weekend, my sister and I watched a movie, it was quite good. It was really decent. It's called Rocky or Rani, which is very funny, like a rom-com kind of film. And there was like a lot of kissing in this film, which isn't bad, right? I'm not saying that I'm against that, but it would happen like during music, like songs. And I was kind of just like looking at it being like, why are we having this? Like, why can't you just dance instead? Like, what do we gain by this? Like, I don't really want to see you guys kiss. I'm not liking this. Like, I don't know why we're doing it. And I feel like it's become so much more common in Bollywood films now. But I just think that almost the absence of that kind of scene also does say something and add to the mood and the ambiance of a film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was long-winded.
No, I think that was great. Next time I see like PDA or anything, I'm just gonna be like, "Stop kissing, start dancing."
Yeah, exactly. We need more of that. We need more dancing.
Your PDA is gratuitous. Stop that. Oh, yeah. I mean, like way back when, I think like movies and the black and white films, film noir, stuff like that, there wouldn't be sex scenes. There would be, the camera would cut off and you would see either, people smoking, cigarette smoke, an open window, curtains billowing in the evening breeze, something like that. And then around, 70s and 80s when everyone's guards were down and, revolution of culture, then all the sex scenes occurred and have sort of melted into society, and whether or not that they're gratuitous is but like, what are you watching? Because I feel like either I don't have enough of the sex scenes in the literature I'm reading, or watching that, like, am I missing out?
I mean, I haven't like watched a new show in a long time, but I just feel like if you were to, and it's unfortunate that I'm not, that plugged into like visual references and the names, but I know that there definitely are film like shows, popular shows that are like a Suits type of thing. Does Suits start like that? Like, I don't know. Like shows like that, or like something that's a little darker, like would start with a scene like that because it's somehow meant to show you that like we're bad. Like that's kind of the vibe that it gives me, the watcher, when it's like, unless this is somehow a story or a movie or a show about someone cheating on their wife or their husband, like why are we starting with this scene? Is a question that I ask myself, but I feel like they do it because they think that audiences and viewers, oh, Game of Thrones kind of starts like that, doesn't it?
Oh yes, and I think he talks about that too.
Yeah.
In the-
It's just like, but people, I think the people creating these films tend to think that like more people will be engaged with the film if it has a scene like that. I watched a film, one of the 5 films I've seen this year. Hold on, let me go to my tabs of notes where I write down these things. So movies, in June, I watched Body Double, which in the first 5 minutes of the film does have a scene like this. And obviously this scene is actually very important to the main character's like trajectory and the little journey he goes on. But it happens within the first 5 minutes. And I think it happened there, one, because it is important to the protagonist, but it's also to show viewers that like you want to keep watching because this is like sultry and this is spicy and this is good. And I think that's sometimes what these directors' intent is, but that doesn't always work, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And Noor is backing me up. Yeah.
Sex is very unsexy. Yeah. There are some moments where I see it on screen, I'm just like, this is not realistic. What is this? Is this feeding into fantasy? Like what is this doing? I think, yeah, it has to add some kind of either a hook in that case or like adding something to character development or to the overall themes or like relationship between characters and bond strengthening or things like that. But yeah, but I think also as well, reading this piece has also allowed me to think like, or rethink like, oh, you know, I've been reading a lot of stuff, and sometimes I feel like, oh, that you know, this could have been 50 pages shorter. Like this book could have been, you know, 100 pages shorter, and maybe rethink like and reevaluate like, wait, what are these scenes doing? And I've been really careful and more attentive as a reader in terms of like, yeah, what are these moments doing? Are these moments necessary within the piece? Yeah. So for like the longer books that you've been reading, have you felt that like any of the scenes felt too gratuitous, or do you think every scene that was written was necessary?
So with Crime and Punishment, I do feel like that is one, and it's interesting because I think Brandon Taylor does talk about like Anna Karenina at one point, but like with Crime and Punishment, and I'm only in like part 3, I've already gotten to the point where I'm like, yeah, I get it that Rascal Nikova or whatever, he's feeling stressed, he's feeling anxious. Like maybe we could have pulled it back a little bit. But also, like, same thing as you, I do know that like some of my book critiques when I make these videos, sometimes it will be like, oh, I do think that this was a little too long, as you were saying. And I think maybe for you and me, it's because we're reading so much. And so when we're reading a book and we feel like we've maybe got the idea or got the theme and we kind of feel done with it, that's when it starts to be like, oh, we could have cut it a little bit, which is almost bad because it's like we want to be reading so many things that sometimes maybe engaging with the work a little deeper potentially is a little scary, and it would require more from us. But that's also at the same time, like Brandon Taylor in this piece is really making the point that every little bit in a book is necessary and important because the author put it there for a reason. But I think he's really has his like author pants on while he's saying this and not thinking about the reader, because sometimes the reader didn't need certain things in there.
Mm-hmm. And also, I think the article skipped out on an editor or like a little bit about editors and the necessity of editors and how they can also reshape a work as well. But I think Bibliosophy
a video tour back was talking about long books and just like the idea of we were talking about in the comments a bit about like The Goldfinch. It's a big book, and it's being so invested in the story that there's just something that occurs in pacing and your relationship to the character and seeing the relationship to the character grow, not as like a fictional character but as like an actual human being. Like you start to care and feel and grow with this character, and that's the importance of big books, and how everything in there feels necessary because it's a part of this world building. But then I often think about like Ocean Vuong, and he talks about this idea of like non-writing and the importance of non-writing, and how most of all of his work occurs non-writing. It like exists in his brain, and he's really slow in crafting these things. And I wonder, like, what is the relationship between necessity and non-writing? So are the, notes and other lines and all the kill your darlings that exist, where do they belong when it comes to the actual work itself, and if they are actually necessary? But yeah, it's like how far does world building go? How far does your love go for the work to feel that you need everything in this piece?
I think it goes back to like intent of what the work is. Like I think when he does use the example of Knopf, how do you spell that guy's name?
Knausgaard?
Yeah.
K-N-A-U.
A-N?
K-N-A-U, yeah.
Okay. Cool. Oh, I can't find it. But the mundane. Oh shoot. Can you still see my screen? Yeah. So that his work is filled with unnecessary detail, that he goes on and on about quite mundane things, that the truth is somewhat that he does write about mundane things, but so do all writers. Everyone writes about mundane things because life is mundane. Ideally, job one of the writers to have something to say about the material of life and to arrange them in a way that gives some insight. Novels aren't all firefights and explosions. Knopfgaard's great gift is the clarity with which he sees the details of life and the way he's absolutely able to render them in language so that we feel as though we are experiencing them firsthand. And in doing so, he imbues those details with a lot of tone and atmosphere and subtext, so that you really do feel like you're skimming along the waters of a consciousness without it feeling forced or worked. It's kind of a directness that is rare and exceedingly difficult to do. He tricks you into having better thoughts that you otherwise would have imagined yourself capable of having. So in that regards of like, I've not read any of his work, but from what I know, it seems like there's a lot of details and excessive descriptions, but I imagine that it's there because there's a really strong intent there. But I think that maybe when it comes to some of the books that we may have read and we were like, this could have been 50 pages shorter, or we could have cut the allusions to X, it's because we maybe haven't fully grasped the author's intent, or maybe we did grasp the intent and we just didn't think that the intent, like that the execution was justified. Right?
Yeah. And I think that's where also art criticism sort of plays a really big role in allowing us to really analyze works like this, and whether or not, one part felt more than it needed to be or not. It's such a special skill to be able to do that and really analyze a work like that, and it's really important. But
that's probably where having a really good editor comes in, though, because I think sometimes if you're really close to the work, you might think something's important when it's not, and then you need the editor to give you pushback to be like, well, why is this here? Like, oh, it's important for X reason, but why? Like, is it really like really allowing the writer to get deep into their rationale? Because I think sometimes when you are writing, it can be very irrational, and you'll add things in there that aren't needed.
Yeah, And it's also a very like solitary and internal work. Like you need those separate pair of eyes to like look back and say, hey, maybe this isn't feeding into the work, you know, as a whole. Like, yeah. But yeah, editors, really, really important. Could there be AI editors?
I don't think so, because maybe from a grammar standpoint, but from a
Creative editor, yeah.
I don't think so, because I think from the few times that I've like messed around, a few times, I've used it more than a few times, but like with ChatGPT, it doesn't really seem to be able to give value-based judgments. Hello, Ben. It doesn't seem to give like an opinion. So I think that's what would be needed with an editor.
Hey, machine, you got an opinion? But yeah, see, that's, I think, like for copywriters and editors and stuff, that's where the human touch is required.
Because what the human point of, what humans have that AI doesn't is a point of view.
Yes.
That's the difference.
That's the difference, yeah.
AI is like a repository of everything. The humans are able to sift the humans. We're able to sift through and put on
Whose side are you on? The humans?
I guess so. I guess I'm a human.
Yeah. I feel like the more and more we talk about this, I feel like we're on the mothership of The Employees by Olga Raven. I'm just like, I'm telling y'all, she's predicting the future. But yeah, crazy AI.
You're making us blush.
I'm really dumb. But yeah, wild. AI. You sent me that TikTok about legislation.
Wait, are we done with the Brandon, or because I had one more thought about it.
Yes. Was there anything else in the Brandon Taylor article?
Well, I think you go. You want to go first? I think we're potentially going to go to the same spot, but you go first.
No, you go ahead. I think
okay. I think that this is, to be real with you guys, this is the first Brandon Taylor article newsletter I've read all the way through in its entirety, and it was a lot of fun to read. I thought it was really thought-provoking, and this idea of like necessity and what isn't important to the work. Brandon Taylor then goes on to say that even, and I think this relates to our conversations about AI-related stuff and Nonthings, he goes on to say that if, let's say, the first time you read a book, you weren't interested. He uses the example of high fantasy, where you could have a lot of description on world building or like economic tariffs, and then you could also have a romance. Maybe the first time you read the book, you're not much interested in the romance, and you're like, why is this here? This wasn't needed. But then you decide to reread the work, and you see how actually that romance adds tension, which helps, the protagonist do X or whatever. So it was needed. But you were only really able to appreciate that on a second read, on a reread, because the first time through, you got what was necessary for you. And the second time, you were able to pick up more texture and like material in the work. And then he says something about rereading, which I thought was quite interesting. We're so unable to conceive of a revision, of a revisitation or a reread, that we put all of this emphasis on maximum extraction at first encounter, and anything that gets in the way of that maximum extraction is unnecessary to us. And not only that, but we feel hostile toward it because it stands between us and our gamified notion of cultural engagement. I thought that was very interesting, especially, when it comes through on, whether or not people decide to reread things or not, and that can be quite a hot topic. And so that was very interesting to me. And then Brandon Taylor talks about how, in some regards, an author's dream is to have a show made out of their book. But then the main thing that Brandon Taylor is saying is that like the criticism you might be giving a book might not really be valid because it's probably there for a reason, which I think is a very like, you can push at that and tug at that, because that almost tends to say that like criticism isn't valid, and I do think criticism is valid. But Brandon Taylor ends this piece with a zinger, if you would. To put it in any other way, you're always unnecessary in someone else's reading. which I thought was very, it's the snap.
Yep. Snaps on that. But I'm going to put this out there. Kiran, I think you're a pretty smart reader.
Why thank you, Nathan?
Like, on first extraction, like, what glasses are you wearing? Are you reading from construction point of view? Are you, like, looking at, oh, I understand, like, the metaphors and stuff? Or are you also, like, looking at plot and aestheticism as well? Like, when you delve into a work, what glasses, how many glasses are you wearing? And are you able to sort of see the work in its totality without, like, not necessarily needing a second reread, like a second read?
I think I do tend to feel for the most part that I don't need a second reread of books. The only time I would want to do a second reread is for something like The Sweet Days of Discipline by Fleur Yagi, which I think is, like, to me, because I recently saw TikTok, hello TikTok, never far from our minds, where this girl was like, these are the 5 books that I will not allow any criticism. And the first one was Yellowface, and then I got so mad I kept scrolling. But for me, that then had me thinking, what would those books be for me? And one of them was The Sweet Days of Discipline, and I thought why that is because I could reread it again. And when I do read, because obviously I think it depends on what you're reading. Like recently, last week, I was reading a fantasy book. I did not have my, like, critical lenses on. I was there for, like, a good time. I had my seatbelt on because I knew I was going to be going for a ride. That's what I had on. But when it comes to reading, I think it's hard because I definitely have more than one lens on. I'm not necessarily looking at plot, though. That's not very high on my list. I'm interested in writing and themes. What about you?
I like to describe it as Benjamin Franklin's bifocals, where, you know, he had his glasses, but then there was, like, a line that separated, like, nearsighted, farsighted.
And,
So
like, you but, like, look down on yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's weird. I really don't know how to describe it, but, like, when I'm reading, I am extracting, like, from, like, a writer perspective, like, everything. Yeah. But I'm also, like, enjoying it a lot. Like, I see the high entertainment value of it all. I think it works a bit better for me. Yes, plot is overrated. And I think that's a really interesting point, given that, like, when he goes in to talk about, like, Game of Thrones, like, Brandon Taylor in this piece talks about, like, Game of Thrones and everything and how, like, it's so, like, plot-based, but, like, does it need all this sex? Does it need all that violence to forward plot, necessarily? But yeah. Oh, what was it? I was reading someone's hate review of My Year of Rest and Relaxation. They're like, nothing happens in this book. I'm just like, well, that wasn't the point.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was no plot.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, I think it works better for me in film, where I can sort of see, like, camera movement and things while also, like, enjoying it on a visual level. Like, I'll see, like, how a close-up goes in and where it cuts off and how scene is set up in, like, a, you know, master shot, but also enjoying the entertainment values. But yeah, I mean, reading's supposed to be fun.
Supposedly fun. Which is Greg's handle. He makes some really great YouTube videos. Yeah, but I do think this Brandon Taylor article had a lot to parse through, because when it does come to that Game of Thrones example, and then, like, the use of how much, like, there's a lot of sex and violence in it, he was kind of just like, but why are you looking for J.R.R. Martin to, is that his name? George R.R. Martin? Why are you looking at him to, like, moralize a story? Like, that's not the role that he's set out for himself. That's not his intent in any capacity, which I think is, like, yeah, valid. There's a point to be made there.
Yeah. But yeah, you're always unnecessary in someone else's reading. And I think you could say that, you know, that could apply beyond books.
Yes. Very, 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 very true.
Yeah. The library is open and he is reading his subscribers to Phil. No, he's great. I've been enjoying these newsletters. He wrote one on Commonwealth, which I think has like spurted the Anne Patchett love again. Before people take on Tom Lake, people have been going back to Commonwealth, and yeah, been enjoying that. But yeah, everyone, you should read this spicy Substack by your boy Brandon Taylor. It's a juicy.
It is juicy because there's also Brandon Taylor threw jabs at us because Nathan and I both DNF'd the new Zadie Smith. We DNF'd the fraud, and reading this paragraph, I think I will pick it back up again. Where do you stand, Nathan?
He got me good, but like I don't know. I still stand like I don't know.
I think our criticism is valid. I do think that the story, and then we haven't even gotten to I think we both stopped a little bit in the Jamaica bit. Before Jamaica really happens, this moment. I
was like shy of 100 pages of finishing.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay,
so I was like,
maybe I shouldn't even bother picking it up.
Yeah, so I think you saved yourself.
Okay. So for those of you who haven't read the article and who aren't going to, he says that the Zadie Smith new novel, The Fraud, is a good example of like the necessity thing, because one of the criticism that you can lie on our girl Zadie is that this story is potentially a little bit bloated and that there's a lot of excess detail in there that we may not have needed. But he says that the excess detail in the regards to the Jamaica plot line is actually super important, and the writing she's doing there is the best historical writing that has happened in the last 20 years. And that is such a heavy and bold statement. It makes me want to pick up The Fraud again.
Yeah. And like I totally sort of like ran through the Jamaica bit, which I mean, I think that was the most interesting part, Annalisa as characterization. And he says this in the article too, that like he praises Eliza's characterization, and
she's a great character.
Yeah, she's great because she's so layered and textured, and there's so many things happening within her that I just find so much more interesting than all of the male characters. Are we surprised? Are we surprised that the female character is more interesting than the male character?
Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, yeah. My feelings are, though, is that because it's bloated in this way, it should have been, I feel like, split up into like 3 novellas packaged into one kind of thing.
Oh.
I think that would have been like a very interesting take. But I also heard that someone else who who I read this with was talking about how like Victorian life exists within the mundanity. You know, there was like none of these distractions going on. You just sort of had to sit with these slow moments, right? Going back to like silence and boredom. But yeah, like Victorian life, just, you know, life moved so slowly that I think Smith like really captured sort of the quote unquote vibrancy of Victorian life, the mood, the aesthetic, if you will. But yeah, I don't know. So you're thinking of going back and reading the Jamaica bits?
Well, I don't even think I was anywhere close to the Jamaica bits. I think I was like, she'd just gone to the pub with the wife of the hubby to listen to that guy talk about the case. So I think I'm like still fairly early days in what is it actually quite long book. Like I did spend time with it, but I think if I were to do it, I think I'd have to do it physically because the chapters are really short. And I think both of our criticisms is that the structure of the novel, like you're speaking of maybe having novellas. I, while reading it, thought that we needed longer chapters. So I think I could only really tackle it physically because the short chapters, reading it on a Kindle, are jarring to me for whatever reason. Like it shouldn't make sense, but I'm just like, keep on being taken out of the world.
Yeah. And perhaps it's the Kindle. it's the non-things. You gotta own it. But yeah.
But yeah, that's a good point, Kieran. Hilary Mantel's historical fiction is quite good. I do need to finish Wolf Hall. I took a break on that, but the language in that is phenomenal. It's incredible writing.
I'll admit I am not big on historical fiction. Is there one that will turn me? Is it Wolf Hall?
I think Wolf Hall is a little potentially like over ambitious. Like like even I was like, because there's just so many Thomases, and it's just like, but you could do it. I just think you'd have to like take your time with it. I don't have any problems with historical fiction because I really liked history as a kid, so I'm kind of like, I'm here for it. I would read what were those books? The books on the cover, like this is the Diary of an American Revolutionary Girl. Like I read those books. Girl, like that whole series. What were those? Sharon, do you know what I'm talking about? What? The Diary of I found it. Never mind. These.
Yeah.
Dear American.
Someone's gonna buy a used box set on eBay now.
Like this kind of stuff was my jam. Not some of these. I don't remember some of these.
The Royal Diary.
The Royal Diaries. Yeah, that's what I read.
Ooh.
Cleopatra.
Yeah. So the Marie Antoinette one, Cleopatra. There was like one about an Indian princess. Like those were the stories I grew up with.
Okay. So you're a big history head growing up.
Yeah, and then I studied like art history. Like give me history. I love stories. Like they're literally just gossip.
Yeah. AP Euro.
Yeah.
Lots of gossip.
Oh, okay. Kieran has a rack for you. The Luminaries.
That's, one of those like mass market paperbacks, right?
I think now it probably is, but it won the Booker. It's by Eleanor Catton. Yeah. And so I read Burnham Wood, and I have not read this yet, but definitely you should read it. Like,
okay, it's
really good. It's a big book, though. It's a big boy.
Okay, I think Charles talked about this. I think
possibly it's quite popular.
Yeah, I knew it was like super popular, and I was just one of those people.
Carolina is reading Of Human Bondage by W. Somerset Maugham. Given that it's quite a chunkier one, this conversation seems fitting. Yes. Long narratives offer a special connection with characters. Yeah, they can. Yeah, they definitely can.
Yeah, and it's also just like the entire world's building as well. And there's just a different pace to it when you read like a bigger book. You really do have to, invest time and be slow within the work. And that's where the character, your relationship to the character, I think is so beautiful as well. But yeah. August, I've been reading a lot of big books.
Oh, yeah?
I mean, sadly, DNF'd this one. But, like, I read some thickies, and I'll let you know that, like, it's been nice sort of, like, settling into... Because I'm really big on tiny books. I'm a tiny book guy.
Yeah, my sister calls them pamphlets.
That I love me a good pamphlet.
Same.
But yeah, it's just like, okay, maybe hot take, but like movies, 3 hours long, stop that. Everybody needs to stop. Like, I want to go back to like the early like 80s, 90s, 86-minute movies.
Yeah, I think I have a different perspective because I have watched some really long movies. Like, so I'm kind of okay with them. I just think it has to be worth it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, like sitting through, like I don't have an inclination to watch Oppenheimer.
I was like, I really wasn't interested, and then like a lot of the hype made me like super interested in wanting to watch it, but that's died down completely now.
Yeah. So do you want to watch it?
So no, not anymore. No, but I do think it's one of those films that if you don't see it in theaters, you probably never will.
Yeah. Also, why would you watch like a Christopher Nolan movie at home? It's like his like films exist on like Dolby sound. It's like a theater experience. Yeah.
I'd rather fart out a quick book than stay in a room with a long-winded one. Amen.
Amen. Absolutely.
At the same time, he did wreck the 840-page Luminaries.
Wow.
But it must be a really good one, long-winded one then. You know what I mean? It's not even long-winded. It's just juicy, full. Like, I don't know what would be the right adjective there, but
You should write the blurb for that. Juicy and full.
yeah.
But yeah, The Fraud, Zadie Smith. This is your first Zadie Smith, right?
No. So I read Swing Time,
Oh,
which
right.
I did like. Wait, was this your first?
This was my first, and I think it was a mistake.
Good props. I mean, to be fair, I've had a really hard time with Zadie Smith's work. I just think The Fraud is very different in tone, but her work is like super British. British people go so hard for her work, and Disco King is going to rewatch Oppenheimer on his Samsung phone. I think that that her work is, oh, go ahead. Sorry, I'm like interrupting.
Oh no, go ahead. Zadie Smith.
Oh, so Kieran thinks that White Teeth is the only Zadie Smith book that you need to read, which I probably is like what a lot of people have said. I've tried to read some of her short stories. I stopped. They're just like too British for me that I just like.
Do you mean in terms of like language or like reference or like because it's so in tune with culture or?
I don't think she does like I don't think her dialogue from what I remember is like hard. It's not like slang or like British lingo kind of stuff. I just think it's the cultural references and what they're talking about. Just I don't think it's written for me. I think, but maybe I need to pick it up again. It's been a while.
Yeah. White Teeth is always that book that's like at the Goodwill for $2. So next time I'm there, I'll definitely pick up my copy. But yeah, I feel that's the answer. White Teeth is the only Smith that one needs to read. Okay, that's right.
And it was her debut, which is kind of wild, right?
Yeah, and you have that thing. You have the thing for reading debut books of authors you like, though, or.
Oh, I love reading people's debuts. It gives me like, it's a good reference point. Yeah, Zadie Smith is very London. That's what it is. She's super, super London. And the only people who have ever told me that they really, really love her are people from London. That she really like represents London very well.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was my first. This is how I decided to pop my cherry. And I want to redo. And I'll redo with White Teeth.
Yeah. Okay. We've got some more thoughts. Was this nonfiction? I remember the cover.
Isn't that the Toni Morrison?
Oh no, you're right. Oh my gosh, how baloney of it. Yeah. I got confused because that's Smith's introduction, and I was like, oh, I guess she published this. I think the nonfiction is like she's really smart, super smart.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, to have created this is kind of insane when you think about it. Like, I will say the Jamaica bit in here is like a rewriting of basically slave narrative and slave history, which I think is like incredibly refreshing and new. I haven't read anything like that, so I will say that. But like my overall reading experience of this has been, I think, perhaps too big brain for me. But like she's incredibly smart.
I don't think it's big brain. I think it's a slog. Is that how you say that word?
Yeah, but that's just how I feel about all historical fiction.
Kieran also gave another rack. The Pillars of the Earth. Oh, it's
Pillars of-
Welsh. I don't think I know.
Me adding all of these to my Goodreads TBR.
By Ken.
Oh yeah.
I was gonna be like, this looks like Merlin.
Oh,
Okay,
come on. Why is this 976 pages?
Historical fiction is big. There's a lot they need to do for the world building.
Yeah.
It's about the building of a cathedral. Yeah, when you look at the covers, it's giving like Merlin.
Truly. Wild. Pillars of the Earth. Interesting. Okay. Well, surprisingly, I already added this to my TBR. When I looked
Pillars
it
of the Earth?
up. Yeah, I don't know why.
As a sign, you need to read it. That's what they call synchronicity in the art of ways.
Yeah.
The artist way.
The artist's way. Did you finish that?
I'm like on week 11, so 2 more weeks left.
Carolina, I love me a quickie.
Yeah.
I said it. Sometimes it just gets the job done. For real.
Yep.
But yeah, like a Floriegi. Like I could do Sweet Days of Discipline again.
Did you read Paradise by Fernanda Melchor?
That one's also a quickie. Packs a punch. It's a good
And
one.
both of those are very intense short books, and you're just swept away and in the world, and it shows you how much you can do with a tight page count.
Exactly. And the economy of words. Yeah.
Mm.
I have Melchor's hurricane season. I think I'll save it for like colder months, but I feel the stress. I feel the stress.
Yeah.
Like Paradise was so stressful. I was like,
It was.
oof.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to do the I know Ben read it recently. Disco King, did you also read it? But this is not Miami. Sort of
Those are nonfiction, right?
yeah. And they're like interlinked, I think, in a way. But very interesting to see what that looks like as well.
Oh, you just bought it.
Nice. Let us know. Let the good people know how it goes. But yeah, she's stunning. I love her work.
Seems.
Yeah. I love how she like pits her characters against each other. It just feels like so like claustrophobic and close up. I can like feel the sweat and heat off their bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe there's something to be said that in a shorter book or shorter books, pitting 2 characters against each other. So like Paradise, you have Fat Boy and the protagonist. In Sweet Days of Discipline, you have the main character and her obsession with that other girl, and she's kind of her foil. And then, for example, My Year of Rest and Relaxation, which is longer than both of those books, you have the protagonist and Riva. And so within the shorter context, having 2 people is a good, balance.
Yeah. Yeah, I find that's always so fun. Yes. Yeah, really exploring toxic masculinity, and I think she like does it brilliantly within that gated community. And like creating this sort of sanctuary, and what does it mean to leave the bounds of the sanctuary, and like that whole escape scene at the end into the river is just like so immense, and yeah, just like atmosphere as well. Like she gets so into the headspace, but also in atmosphere, in and out, inside and out. She does it all.
We've both only read Paradise, and we had really, really great experiences with it. from people who have read both Hurricane Seasons and Paradise, I have heard, I think that Hurricane Seasons is stronger, but I thought Paradise was brilliant. So it seems like you can't go wrong with either option.
Yeah, but we'll say also it's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
There are really intense moments in Paradise and in Hurricane Season, I've heard as well.
Hurricane Season is even crazier, yeah. So I say look at the plot and use that to judge which one you'd rather go for. And just know that like Paradise is shorter if you just want like a taster.
Yeah.
More accessible, yeah.
Accessible. Disco King blurbs Paradise. Accessible.
Yeah, that's accessible.
For all.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I think she's doing really cool and very interesting things within the writing sphere in terms of tiny books. And she should do more tinies, honestly, like these like short punches.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because I also there was like that tiny wave. Do you remember that like Mona assembly wave? I wanted to do those tinies, but I don't think they had like the sort of same breadth that Melchor has in terms of
they're both very different. Like whereas Paradise feels really fully formed. Mona came. Did you read either of them?
I read Mona, and I've been meaning to read Assembly.
They're both good. They're just not the same as Paradise.
Yeah, but I feel like Mona has the potential to have that punch.
Yeah. Something was missing. I thought that the end though, well, not the like surrealist end, but like before that, the when we know, very intense.
Yeah, there are two different kinds of intensities working. I'm not sure if it like really worked. For me, it worked. I think the sort of beginning and middle could have been cleaned up just a tiny bit, but because of its like short form factor, it just had like a different punch versus Paradise, I think.
Yeah.
But it still punched.
It did. It punched and it hit and it went there.
But cool. Disco King just bought White Teeth, was it? Oh no. This is not Miami.
Yeah.
In terms of BookTube, Bookstagram news, what have you been watching? What cool things have you picked up? Are we getting a Noor and Kiran vlog?
No.
Their little chit chat video.
So when we saw
what are you feeding the people?
We were just having so much fun. We didn't even take out our cameras. We were just like in the moment. And so there's no video, there's no collab, there's nothing like that, unfortunately.
We're starved. You've left us starved. But it's probably a good sign that you didn't take out your phone.
Yeah, that is true. We were just having so much fun. But like really we're just like gabbing away, chit-chatting. Let's see, what have I been watching? I don't think I've actually surprisingly watched a lot of BookTube this week, but I did. I think this was on because of your recommendation, The Left-Handed Reader.
I love her. She's great. Didn't she recently do the George Eliot reading vlog?
Yeah, Middlemarch. Yes. Middlemarch. I'm still like in the early days of that vlog, but like I really like her channel. She's been like lovely to watch, and then I recently watched CJ's video about Sunnies and the updates on the Q&As and the book and the tour of the store, which I thought was super cool.
So cute. I love the space. I love the little little reading nook that she incorporated into the store. I think it's so important that like a bookstore has like a little place.
Yeah.
Sit down and read, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So important. But yeah, left-handed reader. I love that she like reads everything. I think that's what I love. Like she'll read everything new release, but also like a bit millennial, but like also read classics. And it's just like a broad
Spectrum.
spectrum. It's fantastic.
Isn't
Did
that like
you
all
watch?
Wi-Fi
Oh, what?
brand? Isn't that like a Wi-Fi brand as well? Like in America, Spectrum.
Oh, Spectrum. It is. It is. Yeah. She is a broadband. Yeah. But yeah, I love that she picks up everything. And yeah, just a joy. Yeah, CJ, great store. Can't wait to see the murals. That's cool. Did you watch Jalen's bookshelf tour?
I haven't watched it yet. I need to watch it. So give me like the TLDR because I'll watch tomorrow.
Ooh, very interesting the way that he splits up his shelf. It's not necessarily like here's all of the books A through Z. It's like he has his own special places. Like each shelf has its own special category. It's really
It's very personalized to like him and his way of viewing his collection.
Yeah, and he also has like a little reading nook as well, like right next to the shelf. So I think that's adorable.
How do you organize your books?
Right now it is like I have books like all over the place.
It's bedlam.
Yeah, because I'm like in all the process of like sending stuff back home. Because I might be moving, changing apartments, who knows? So I'm just like I'm in the process of just like let me declutter. I just have like this massive closet cleanup too. But like yeah, books are just everywhere. There's no real sense of nothing's in ABC order. Nothing is it's like whatever's next to me, I'll pick it up and read it next. It's pretty bad. What about you? Like, are you essentially living in your suitcase? Do you have a bookshelf in your suitcase?
So my sister has a bookshelf, so I've just put them there, and I haven't bothered to organize them. They're all just the books that I brought. They're just there. They're just on a shelf, and that's good enough. In London, how I've done it is all of my books are always color coordinated, but I have two sections. I have like the books I need to read and then the books that I've read. And then in that month, let's say the month of August, every book I would read that I'd read that month, I'd put to the side just so it's easier to grab when it comes to doing my wrap up.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, I have like a dedicated shelf to like, these are the books I need to talk about for the wrap up.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Let me see, what else? I saw Linen Librarian recently finished Open Throat, the queer mountain lion.
Yeah, I've heard that's good.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun in terms of like form.
Did you read it?
Yeah, I did it as a buddy read with Alex. What page are you on? Yeah, we had a blast. It's fun. It's like very short too. You can probably finish it in like 2 hours.
Oh, okay. Maybe I should read it this month.
Yeah, like sneak it in, little quickie. Yeah, it's a fun one. But I will say, marketed as a queer mountain lion story, I think based off of like the real life LA mountain lion, but not queer enough. It needed more gay in it. Gay, but it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me see. Bibliosophie and Modern Ajma met.
I know those videos I loved.
They were fun. The What's in My Bag.
Yes.
Great. I loved all the little things. I loved Sophie's little paperclip. Just like random paper clips. Yeah. Oh, Sally Rooney. They talked about Sally Rooney. What are your thoughts on Sally Rooney?
I have only read Conversations with Friends. And it made me really mad. And I appreciate it for the love story. Like, I'm happy the way it ended because I do think that was like deserved, but I did not enjoy my reading experience. And I think it's because there's so much discourse around Sally Rooney. And when I read the book, I was not impressed because I don't think it's the kind of writing I necessarily gravitate towards. But her style is very like bland, and like, she's intentionally writing like that, and like I don't like it. You tell me your thoughts.
I'm kind of. I've only read Normal People and Beautiful World, Where Are You? And I started Conversations with Friends, but I couldn't really get into it. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I think a part of me is like, this is too Gen Z for me. In the way
I
that
didn't like that at all.
you didn't think that. Like, do you enjoy how the characters navigate around?
What's such sending emails to each other?
True. But like, what is it? Normal People and Conversations with Friends is there's just like this thing where they don't really talk to each other. They sort of like dance around each other's words.
Well, when I read, because I was so mad about Conversations with Friends, I like listened to a lot of podcasts about it to try to like understand. And how they described it was that in Conversations with Friends, maybe it's similar in Normal People, but I know Normal People is mostly about two people. But with Conversations with Friends, you have four main characters, and it's always to a point that like two people are connected and these two are on the out, or like, sorry to use my fingers in this weird way. These two people are connected, and then these like they're never, as you're saying, like actually talking to each other really, but they form these weird bonds that like these people are working and these people aren't working, then they break apart and like come together. I thought that was like interesting, but I thought that her like the characters in her book, just like what they were talking about with, I was just like, no.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, sort of on the same fence. Yeah, about the whole Sally Rooney discourse. I mean, I think it's interesting to like look at her work and examine, like from, I guess like, okay, this book exists, and I'm trying to understand like why are so many people reading this book, and what are they finding in it, and why is it relating so much to younger readers and such. But other than that, I will say though, the show, I think it was on Hulu, Normal People, it was really good.
Yeah, I've heard that as well.
Yeah, adaptation was phenomenal. Yeah. Let me see. I have what page are you on? Alex is reading I'm a Fan by Sheena Patel.
That's a book that's had a lot of discourse, conversation. People are either very like for it or like a little put off, is what I've gotten.
Yeah. It's already released in the UK though, so yeah. I want to hear what more people have to say about it. But yeah, I'm intrigued by it.
Oh, I think I froze for a second. What did you say? You're intrigued by it?
Yeah, but probably won't get to it for a while.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and then that's about it. I have. Oh, Rebecca Eats Books. I miss Rebecca Eats Books.
I was just looking at her channel this week because I was like, oh, like, did she maybe upload a video and I haven't seen it? But then I was like, no, we just, there's a drought of her videos. We're in a drought.
Yeah. But I always like love like looking at her recs and what she's reading because they're always like so smart and juicy and full. So
Alana is also a really great channel.
Yeah, I love how in-depth her reviews are. She like goes into it. Love all the quotes that she pairs with her pictures. It's so aesthetic. Sometimes I like looking at people's bookstagrams. I'm like, oh my god, how did you make that look so pretty? But yeah, I love her. She has a review on a Lispector book. That was pretty good.
Ray Sally Rooney, Disco King says, can't wait for her fourth book to be the exact same as the previous 3. At least she's consistent. That would be the blurb for the 4th one. Consistent.
Disco King says she's consistent.
Yes.
But I don't know. Don't writers sort of write within the same realm of the worlds? Murakami just comes to mind really quickly.
Jan Fosse also comes to mind for me, writing the same story. I feel like Otessa is not writing the same story.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I mean, within the scope of her work, she's doing different stuff.
Yes. I think if you look at her work like that, it's quite impressive.
Yeah. I think her themes, there's like themes that sort of like link and flow into each other, but the structure and construction of her novels are different.
Very different, yeah.
So it's like she's using different containers to explore the same themes, which is interesting. Because I think, like, to a certain extent, it's quite experimental. How, for example, McGlue is a novella, but it was born from like a news article from like, was it in Boston?
In Salem, Mass.
Massachusetts, yeah. And I thought that was interesting. And then Death in Her Hands explores it from sort of like a murder story. Yeah. But it just exists within the narrator's head. So, like, all of the action.
Yeah.
And then Lapvona, she explores through,
third person and the, like, that's your historical fiction. It's not historical.
I did do a historical fiction.
Well, it's not actually historical fiction, but it's like inspire.
I think that should count.
Yeah, for you it counts, but for like other people it doesn't. I get to pick and choose who it counts for.
Great, yeah. Yeah, she's doing, yeah. And then she's into screenplays. So like the form is just like constantly different. Yeah. Cool. That's wrap on BookTube News. Fall fashion, real quick. What are you wearing for fall?
I need to. Okay, Disco King. Let's talk about you and Otessa. Have you read any of her work beforehand? I think you will enjoy the book because it is funny and it is wild. I liked the exploration of God within the book, and that's something that generally does interest me quite a bit. Like when I was speaking about angels, by Dennis Johnson, there's a lot about God in there. So like those kind of themes really interest me. But I think Lapvona's good, but not necessarily indicative of what she's known for, which would be like My Year of Rest and Relaxation and like the depressed millennial fiction kind of thing. So I think that you could read it and you would like it and like kind of have a blast with it. I don't know if you would come away from it though being like, this is an author for me. Do you kind of agree with that?
Yeah, I think if you're interested in her work, I think you should turn to My Year of Rest and Relaxation, or what is it, Eileen?
But I don't think you'll like that.
Oh, okay.
I don't think Disco King will like it.
Oh,
I think you'll get a little frustrated with My Year of Rest and Relaxation. I don't think you'll feel that way with Lapvona. But you might read Lapvona and you might be like, what's the hype? But I think it's a good book, right? Like,
it's fun.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's a fun book. It's not a perfect book, but it's a fun book.
Yeah.
If you're
looking for fun, Disco King.
If you're looking for like, for some weird reason farts have come up in conversation, like Tessa goes there. So
Oh, what is it? The blueberry?
yes, but we'll just leave it there for you. If
Yeah.
that doesn't entice you, farts and blueberries, like that's it. Please read it so that we can like hear your thoughts.
Yeah. Can't wait to hear about it in a wrap up.
Yeah.
It'd be good. You've read all of Moshfegh?
Yeah, I'm like literally ready to do a dissertation.
Where's her tier list? Where's her tier list video?
I did it as a YouTube Shorts, but for the tier list, just for like, because I did it right when Latbona came out, I put Latbona as number 1. For me, number 1 is McClue. Oh, actually, since we're talking about Otessa, I don't think you're really enjoying the short stories. You probably have finished them by now.
Okay, see, the mistake I made was that I read them back to back.
Okay.
That was the problem.
Yeah.
They're good. Like they're good.
On a form level, they're very good.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're fine. They're just I feel like they're good. It's just I think I prefer her novels.
What did you say?
I think I prefer novels. That's it.
Because
Yeah, I enjoy the entire world.
Every time you mentioned reading the short stories in the vlogs, I can tell you're not loving them. You just keep on. It's good. It's very like hands off. You're like you're not gonna go there, but you're like I'm reading it. It's good.
For the record, it's a strong short story collection. I also think this is like a nice foray into her work, too. Like as like a nice sampler. Like if you're in the bookstore and you don't know what to do about Moshfegh. Yes, and she wrote the screenplay for Causeway, which is kind of crazy.
I think you can really appreciate Otessa for like she's a good writer.
Yeah, craft wise, she's phenomenal. Yeah. But yeah, I made the mistake of reading them back to back because I was just like so annoyed that like I was still reading it. And I was like, oh, let me finish this. But no, they're good. Like in terms of if I have like a canon of favorite short story collections, it's in there. Yeah. Truthfully.
Okay.
Yeah. But I still have Eileen left to read.
Oh, I like Eileen.
Yeah, it's gonna be on my last one, and then I've read all her work. Yeah.
Read it like in the winter.
Is it a winter book? Because I was gonna read it for fall, like November-ish.
There's like snow.
Okay. Maybe I'll save it for winter. Yeah. But yeah, I'm so excited. How do you feel about Anne Hathaway starring in the film?
I'm like intrigued. I can't really imagine her as a redhead, but I don't know. I mean, she is a great actress, so it's like very interesting. I don't know who the Eileen girl is. Like, I don't know who she is. But I'm excited. I just wish we had a trailer. Like, they've been talking about this film for like 70 bazillion years. Why don't we have a trailer yet?
I know, right? But I'm excited. I can't wait because this is her like fully fledged screenplay, I believe. Yeah. She worked on scenes for Causeway. She wasn't like a screenwriter.
They were the original ones, right?
Yeah, and they were like a batch that came in after to sort of rewrite the emotional scenes, I believe. It was in that podcast I think I sent you. Or that interview on YouTube.
It was like her and her husband, because basically for her screenplay she works with her husband, Luke Goebel.
Yeah.
And so they rewrote it, but then after them, another team came in to rework the screenplay. But there are things from her script that are in the film.
Yeah. Which I still have to see.
Probably won't watch it. It doesn't seem that interesting to me, but
yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's where I'm like really curious about like her craft and how she's like delving into sort of these different containers for her writing.
Different
Um,
modalities.
yeah, modalities. But yeah, but I kind of like that. I kind of like when there is sort of like a literary feel in a film.
Yeah, I agree. Because, and maybe it could be just how we're watching the film, but when there's good writing in a film, like good dialogue, clever dialogue, like that's a game changer.
Yeah, and I think like Otessa writes really good dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
Like her like punchlines hit.
Yeah.
They're great.
There's
I
like
wonder
a
if I wonder if they like translate to film very well. Like
I
on
think it would probably depend on like actor director. Like
yeah. Yeah. I think she mentioned that Yorgos Lanthimos is adapting it, which will be it's fitting, I think. And yeah, just like them working together, I think it's like super cool. He did Dogtooth, The Favorite, um, The
oh,
Lost.
I really liked The Favorite. I love movies like that.
Yeah, I love just like he's so strange, and just like the worlds he builds. He's fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, this is a fun question. Could you guys talk about how you do buddy reads, how you discuss? Is there any specific way to do it that you like, want to do it with my friends, but wondering how?
Oh yes, I remember your comment. I believe. But yeah, Kieran, we did a few buddy reads.
Yes, we do. I feel like you do a lot more than me, so maybe you have like a better way of doing it. But just like it's very casual and like low effort in a weird way. You just like read the book, you check in with your friend. Like if you want it to be more like read 50 pages by X day and then we'll talk about it. It depends on who your friend is, right? Your friends. You probably know them better than we do if they're readers or not readers or like can they follow through on what they say they're gonna do. But we would
But because you're buddy reading, there's agency. Like there,
yeah.
not so much pressure, but like you have this like shared text. It's this sacred little book, and you're gonna have a good time with it. And like reading is such a solitary act. It's really nice when you share that solace with someone. Hello, Reba. But yeah,
yeah, just make sure like you guys could do like a check-in in the middle or like just chat about it at the end. And then I normally like kind of keep a note card where I'm writing like specific quotes or ideas or like, you know, let's say you're reading it. Because the last thing we read, Nathan, me, and Charles read Days of Abandonment, and like 50 pages in, Nathan was like, "Oh, like, did you guys get to this line yet? Like, what do you think about this? Like, this is crazy." Or like, what are your thoughts? What's the first impressions? How are you guys feeling? It's just very organic.
yeah. And then it'll be a mix sometimes. I've done bunny reads where it's like long like text forms on a certain part or voice messages as well, and just like a good mix of both of them. But yeah, it really depends on who your friend is and what kind of a reader they are. But yeah, I've done like structured buddy reads where they'll say like, hey, let's meet at like this certain page mark, and yeah, we'll leave our voice notes or thoughts on it and talk about it. Um, or I've done stuff where it's like, oh my god, did you get here? Oh my god, did you see this? Oh my god, and then like send memes.
I feel like sometimes like what makes a successful buddy read is actually the book you chose, the book you pick. Because it needs to be something that like engages both of you guys in the same way. Like I think I've done buddy reads with Renee from So I Read This Book, and the first one we did was Trust by Hernan Diaz, and we both were kind of just like ambivalent about it. So we both were just like, so that didn't really make for a very like nourishing conversation because I think we both felt the same way. So it's almost like good if it's like you hate the book and your friend loves it, and like you guys could converse about that and like get to see the other person's point of view.
Yeah. It's also like such a nice exploration of like who your friend is. I feel like we're always learning new things about our friends. So that's always nice. Conversely, though, I've done a buddy read with Renee where we read Lucy and we both loved it and just like talked about what it meant to be an angsty teenage girl. And though I was not one, I still felt the angst and it was just really nice. Yeah. It like reached onto like a personal level and yeah, like when literature meets your life.
Yeah. When it like has that like personal connection to you, I think then that's great. I think with Trust, it was just like,
it's like
that's historical fiction if you want to read that.
That's historical fiction?
Kind of, yeah.
For me.
Yeah, but not even for you. Like it's like about the crash on like Wall Street.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know why like I deemed historical fiction as like stuff from the Victorian era.
That too, but it's like also, 1920s.
Right. All right. Yeah, that is quite old. Yeah. Oh yeah. Also, sorry, I'm doing a buddy read with Cat's Field Notes and Dog-Eared Musings. This is a short story collection. So after every short story, we're planning to just like leave our thoughts around each story, and that's just like an easy way to track it because it's like each short story. Yeah. But I hope that helps. Are you on a buddy read right now?
I am buddy read less. I was gonna say.
Well, we're technically still reading Solenoid.
Yeah. Wow. How have you made headway? I have not.
I'm on page 180, which is the same page I was on like a few months back. So, yeah. Disco King, come join us in our field.
Yes. Wait, Disco King, how far along are you? Is Disco King still here? At Disco King? Can I at people? I probably can at people. We both could. Oh, how far along are you in Solenoid? What are you thinking of it? It's a big book.
Oh, are you asking me?
Oh, wow. No, Disco King just responded.
Oh. Halfway. Oh my gosh.
How long have you been reading it? Are you flying by? I think I'm like, actually, I think I only have 200, 300 pages left. Like when I checked, let me go look at my books PDF. Do you guys want to see that?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
It's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's so good. Me and Nathan had to take a break from it. We needed to like decompress. We need to really process things. Yeah, this is how I keep track of in addition to Storygraph. And so the reading plan is where I kind of try to do the mathematics of the science, the Kiran math, not the girl math. This is my like math. These are the big books that I'm not this one. This isn't a big book. This is a pretty bad book, unfortunately. Whatever. So yeah, Solenoid. I have 336 pages left, and it was so give us the page number, Disco King. Now let's make it competitive. Maybe that will kick me into gear. Yeah. So this is how I like when I have like a lot of books that I'm juggling. I use this, and then I would like put in how many days ideally that I would want to read the book within. So a distant mirror is, the Excel math. Yeah, we went there. That's the only math I can do. No, actually, I can do like basic math. I'm good with math. But so basically, pages, number of days. So if I want to read it in a month, it would be 9 pages, whatever. Then sometimes I'll be like, okay, like in a week, how many pages would that be? That's how I decide things. And like these were the other books I was trying to read all in 1 month. That didn't happen. But that's how I do that. Yeah. These are the movies I've watched this year. Not a lot. Do you have an Excel like this? How do you track your stuff? Okay, We got Truth. Disco King is 200 pages
Oh,
long.
there we go. Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I was just blabbing away.
Don't worry, I got the math.
Okay, good. I thought maybe you were
Okay,
gonna
cool.
pull up your own Excel, and that's why you were like focused.
I don't know what happened to my audio. I'm sorry, everybody. Okay, 200 pages. Okay, I feel I can catch up. I can do that. But you said you're
I'm like 306 pages. I have, I have 336. I'm like basically in the middle, actually.
crazy.
This is my first work by this author. I had no idea who he was beforehand. I literally watched one video from Traveling Through Stories. He had not finished the book yet, and he was like, this book is so fucking good. And I was sold. And then literally like so many people just started reading it. And I went to Foyles in London to buy the book, and I asked the author, I was like, sorry, not the author. I asked the sales associate, I was like, do you have this book? And he's like, it's so good, but we don't have it right now. And so the second time I went back, we finally had it. That was the story. Yeah. I just like to have an Excel to keep track of everything. I know that
Yeah.
Google Excel's like they're not the best, like if you're actually like an Excel person. But to keep track of like my habits, I have a habits Excel that's really extensive. It works for me. It's my system.
Love that. Do you have a Notion?
I do have Notion, but it's not as good for the way that I like live and work and like do my life. But I'll use it for like miscellaneous. I still haven't used it much actually. I used it before.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Honestly, he deserves it. I think it's doing like incredible stuff.
It's phenomenal. I haven't heard anyone say anything bad about it. Actually, I did read one bad review on Goodreads because there's this TikToker I follow who's like in the art world, and she's maybe an art professor. She reads some really interesting stuff. I happened to see her Goodreads review, and she called it convoluted, I think. I think she was of the belief that it could have been cut down a little bit.
I'm gonna be on Brandon's team on this and say I feel like every bit is sort of necessary.
Yeah. For me,
I feel like
personally, you go ahead.
yeah, no, go ahead. I feel like a thread was pulled out, then
If it were to be
the
pulled out,
entire thing,
would
yeah, it
fall
would
apart.
just unravel. Yeah, yeah. There's just this like level of technicality and world building and an imagination that I don't know. It's so intricate. It's way too intricate that everything feels necessary.
What I think is phenomenal is that every time I think it's going to go in a certain direction, he pivots. And one of the examples is like, I really thought when he tells that story about how he's in the school and he's talking to that teacher who's quite buxom and like she's being very provocative, and like he acknowledges that like, yeah, something could happen there, and that's what you think is going to happen, but it doesn't. And I was just like, I think another male author would have just gone there and done it. But like that restraint is so interesting to me. And I really loved that first scene where him and his love interest are like in the bedroom and the solenoid is up in the air. And I was like, this is so romantic. I love it.
But also like that's where like the magic of the fiction is working. And it's like I don't know when like it's where memoir is occurring and whether like what parts of his reality he's twisting. And it's just so beautiful like that. Yeah. But also yeah, Disco King, like finishing what, 607 pages. It was okay. It was alright. 2 out of 5.
I just guess it's one of those things where it's like you're either fully on board or you're not. And if you're not on board, you would stop reading. Obviously, Nathan and I have taken a break, but we're very much so on board.
Actually, I think I mentioned I claimed this as like one of my top 10 books of last year. But I didn't finish it. But I knew it was going to be a favorite. Maybe it'll show up as a favorite again for 2023. Who
And then
knows?
24 favorite, calling it now.
Yikes. No, I think I'm going to finish it this year, though. Definitely. Yeah, it's just so seamless, which is insane.
Yeah. And then switching between Solenoid and Old God's Time. It's big brain energy.
Yeah. I'm very much like that, though. I feel like sometimes I don't really need, like, a decompress. Do you feel like you need that? Like, do you need to throw in that fantasy to sort of even things out?
No, I don't do that to decompress. I generally do that if there's I don't want to read.
Mm-mm.
So I like hope that the fantasy book will like uh, shift me to be excited about reading again. But I don't think I read
Gotcha.
something and I'm like, I need to decompress. Sometimes I read something and I'm like if you read Paradise, you kind of like need the rest of the day to just be like, it's just
Yeah.
like, but that's because the book is so good. You want to, your brain's still in the world. You're still like putting together pieces.
Yeah. Paradise knocked me out cold. I had to take a nap after. I like took a 3 hour nap after. I was like, woof, that was a lot.
Yeah.
Is he doing anything? Okay, there's also another writer who sort of writes the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, what did you read as like a teenager? Did you read YA?
So I was like really into fantasy. So
Aragon. Did we talk about Aragon?
yes.
Okay.
Guys, if you don't know, finally Christopher Paolini's dropping the 5th book. Murtagh is coming out November 2023. Mark your calendars. I will be rereading Aragon's 1 through 4 in anticipation of this 5th book. I literally thought my whole entire life before the announcement of this that I was going to die before this man added more to the series. So even though I know like Aragon's not the best fantasy book in the world, but it was just I read it so much as a young person, as a child. And yeah, so it's one of those books where I will read it and I will read all of it in a day. Like I won't talk to anyone. November 11th maybe is when it comes out. Like don't call me, don't talk to me, don't make plans with me. Like I'm busy. I'm booked.
Busy and booked. Aragon tier list.
I follow Christopher's Instagram, okay? And also because during the pandemic, I reread all of the books. I was on the fucking Reddit for Aragon. Like, that's how deep I was. I was like going through every single Reddit post, like reading about possible like hypothesis, like theories, like what's going on? What does it mean? Like, is Aragon never gonna get to come back to the continent? Like, I was in it. But I've calmed down now. I haven't checked the Aragon Reddit page in a while.
November's around the corner though. That's gonna be fun.
I know. Yeah. Hopefully I can like find it in the bookstore because like some places will drop it in the bookstores a few days early. So maybe I can just read it like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Should be a good one.
Yeah. It was really I didn't have like some people during the pandemic like had relationships, like they found someone on Rye and there would be these videos where it's like, I met the love of my life during the pandemic and like I didn't have anything like that. I reread the books that I read as a child and then spent like hours of my life on the Aragon Reddit page.
Hey, time well spent, I think.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, if that didn't happen, that wouldn't have led me to making a booktube possibly, like that was a necessary step in the booktube journey potentially.
Yeah, there you go. Aragon tier list though. Let's go.
Yeah, maybe actually I reread it. I'll do that.
Yeah. Should be a fun one.
What did you read as a kid?
What did I read? I mean, I can remember like titles and stuff. I read like Going Bovine, which is about this kid and a gnome, and they go on an adventure together. I read Ellen Hopkins. Do you remember Ellen Hopkins? She
Uh,
wrote those like really tiny prose poetry, but they were like a bit transgressive.
oh, oh yeah. I had I know what you're talking about. Let me pull up the visuals because I don't know. Disc cooking. Did you guys have this in Australia? Hold on, which screen? Yeah, these right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
These
Burned
were
crank
wild.
glass. Right? They were like transgressive, but for teens.
But then wasn't there a
Um,
controversy? There's a controversy. I recently, like, not that recently because I don't remember it, but I was like looking into it.
oh my God, no. What's the T?
That's like Crank isn't actually autobiographical at all. I think that's what it was.
Oh, really? Oh, were they supposed to be autobiographical?
Yeah, that's what they say in like the book cover that this is like it's kind of like this is a warning, but it's actually like
Oh,
not is like whatever.
oh, okay. Um, yeah, I read these so long ago, but I was just reminded of them because I recently finished reading The Millennium Boys by Alex Kazemi. It comes out in a few weeks, but it's basically like transgressive lit for teenagers.
Oh,
Yeah, and I was just reminded of like Ellen Hopkins.
yeah,
Yeah, one of them's about math.
yeah,
Glass, right? I think.
yeah, or Crank. I don't know the street names for. I don't know what's Crank. It's a street name for some drug. I don't know. The other thing, I don't know if Kieran is still on here. We've both bonded over this because we read this series. Like this is more like actual children's lit, I would say, versus like YA.
Hmm.
We read Cirque to Freak, which is written by Darren Shan. And these were like the covers that I read, like these ones here. But
Oh yeah,
these books were dark.
I
Um,
remember these. Yeah.
yeah, Cirque to Freak. You read, yes? Um, but like I thought that these books were awesome. I actually during the pandemic reread them. That's why it's like
Oh,
top for me.
are they like still pretty like freaky?
They're good. They're like I like reading them now because it's been so long since I'd read them. I was surprised by how dark they were, and I think it's kind of good that they do go there. But it was like fucking awesome.
Okay. Yeah, I remember reading these and like being freaked out by them a bit. But like, yeah, I was like thinking back, like, oh, the stuff that I read back then, was it actually like pretty transgressive? Like, did it go there? Um, but okay, interesting. Yeah, I need to do that. I want to do like a whole rereading of stuff that I enjoyed as a kid and see if like they still hold up or like if they offer anything.
Yeah, I never watched the movie though. So,
Insane.
yeah, good times.
Throwback. Love that. Um, was there anything else you want to cover?
No, I think we got a lot of our chests.
Yeah, we decompressed.
Yes, we did. We did.
Yeah, we covered a lot. Well, thank you. This was a lot of fun, and thank you everybody
Yes, thank
who
you
who
guys.
came in and listened. Yeah, thanks for being
Hopefully
here. Y'all matter.
again because it's kind of fun.
Yeah. No, I mean it. No, yeah. We should.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is kind of crazy because I feel like time. Yeah, you're right. You were saying like India and Korea. You have like pretty
it's
time
better
zones.
time zones. Yeah, than like when I'm
Yeah,
in London or back in Boston. Like, so it's good we were able to get one in now.
yeah. Maybe we can sneak one in before you go back.
We could probably do one next week because I like Tuesday or Wednesday or like September 7th or 6th.
Okay.
Yeah, either of those weeks.
Cool. Yeah, we'll probably do it another one. You too,
Yes.
Disco King. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
We both have newsletters. Please subscribe. We both write. We write fab stuff. Kieran covers like really awesome art stuff. Been loving everything from like painting, a bit of film, books. It's all good stuff. Yeah.
Thank you guys all. It's really great having you here, chatting with us. We love your company. You guys are the best. And we'll see you next time.
Catch y'all later.
Bye.